I don't remember the first thing she said to me, but I remember the way her hand brushed mine, just a second too long to be accidental. She was the kind of woman you notice even when she's trying not to be noticed. Mid-40s, maybe, though time sat softly on her face. The kind of softness that comes from having lived enough to stop pretending, but not enough to stop feeling. Her hair was pinned up, a few loose strands falling like they had somewhere else to be. I was helping her move boxes that afternoon, just neighborly, that's all. She'd thanked me 3 times already, but kept insisting she didn't need the help. The way she said it made me stay. The living room was quiet except for the hum of an old ceiling fan. Sunlight pooled across the floor in golden patches, catching the dust that danced between us. I remember thinking how still everything felt, like the world had taken a breath and hadn't exhaled yet. "You can leave that one here," she said, pointing to a box labeled Winter Things. Her voice carried that kind of warmth that makes you forget what you were doing. I nodded, set it down, and straightened up. She was closer than I thought. Too close. Her perfume, faint, not sweet, more like the kind of scent you only notice when it's already fading, brushed past me. I pretended to look at the box again, just to give my hands something to do. "You're quiet," she said after a moment. I smiled. "Just trying not to break anything." She laughed softly, and it wasn't polite laughter. It was knowing. The kind that made you feel seen in a way you didn't ask for but secretly wanted. She walked past me to reach another box, her shoulder grazing my arm. That was when I realized, some people don't need to touch you fully to change the air around you. She knelt to open the box, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Her fingers hesitated on a photograph she found inside. A younger version of her, smiling beside someone I didn't ask about. Her lips parted slightly, as if to say something, but she didn't. She just set the photo aside, face down, and said, "Could you hand me that blanket?" I did. But when she reached for it, our fingers met, hers cool from the box, mine warm from holding it. She didn't pull away right away. Neither did I. It was a small thing. The kind of moment no one else would notice. But in that tiny pause, something shifted. "I haven't had help around here in a while," she said quietly. "Guess I showed up at the right time," I replied. Her eyes lifted to mine, steady, unreadable. Then a faint smile that didn't quite reach them. "Maybe you did." There was something about the way she said maybe that felt like both a warning and an invitation. The light outside had changed, softer, dimmer, late. The room carried that early evening hush that makes every sound too clear. She stood brushing invisible dust from her jeans and said, "I'll make some coffee." But when she turned toward the kitchen, she stopped. Her hand reached for the doorframe, then paused, just like her voice had. "You take sugar?" she asked without looking back. Before I could answer, the knock came, sudden, sharp, echoing through the quiet. She froze, her back to me. The moment, whatever it was, shattered. Then, softer, almost to herself, she said, "I wasn't expecting anyone." The knock at her door turned out to be nothing. Just a delivery dropped at the wrong house. But the silence that followed stayed longer than either of us expected. She'd poured the coffee anyway. 2 cups. No sugar. She remembered. We sat across from each other at her kitchen table, small, wooden, a few scratches that hinted at years of dinners and arguments. The kind of table that had heard too many stories and still waited for more. She stirred her coffee even though there was nothing to stir. "You live alone?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just moved in a few months ago." She nodded, eyes on her cup. "It's quieter than I thought it would be here." I smiled. "That's not always a bad thing." "No," she said softly. "But it can be loud sometimes." I didn't understand what she meant at first, then I realized she wasn't talking about noise. There was something in her tone, that thin line between composure and confession. The kind of sentence that came from someone who's spent too many evenings pretending to be fine. I wanted to ask more, but she was already changing the subject. "Your family close by?" "Not really," I said. "They call." Sometimes. Her smile faltered just slightly, like she recognized the kind of distance you don't fix with a phone call. She took a sip, then glanced toward the window where rain had started, soft, uneven. My husband used to hate the rain, she said without looking at me. He said it made the house feel smaller. I stayed quiet. He's not around anymore, she added quickly, a practiced tone, too neutral to be new. It's been a few years. Her fingers traced the rim of her mug. No ring, no tan line where one used to be. Something about that tiny absence made the air shift between us. I'm sorry, I said because it was all I could say. She shook her head. Don't be. He wasn't a bad man. Just tired. We both were. The word tired lingered like perfume, faint, sad, and familiar. When she finally looked up, her eyes met mine, and for the first time, either of us looked away. It wasn't bold. It was careful. Like she was testing the distance between what was right and what was already happening. I broke the silence with a half-laugh. This is weird, right? Her lips curved, a real smile this time. You're young enough to still say that out loud. I wanted to tell her she didn't feel old. That I didn't notice the years, just the quiet grace in how she held them. But the words wouldn't come. She stood to refill her cup, brushing past me. Her hand grazed my shoulder, not a mistake, not entirely on purpose either. The warmth of her touch stayed longer than it should have. When she turned, she was closer than before, her breath near my neck, her voice low. You should probably head home before the rain gets worse, she said. But neither of us moved. The rain hit harder against the window, steady and rhythmic, the only sound between us. She exhaled, barely a whisper. You always this stubborn? I met her eyes. Only when I shouldn't be. Her gaze dropped for a moment, to my lips, or maybe just the space between us. Then, finally, she stepped back, her composure returning like a door closing. Next time, she said quietly. And somehow, that sounded a lot like a promise. The next time I saw her, the rain had already dried, but the air still smelled like it might come back. She was out front, watering a few wilted plants by her porch, wearing an old white shirt that clung to her shoulders, sleeves rolled to her elbows. She smiled when she saw me, not surprised, not expectant either. Just soft. Back so soon? She asked. I owed you for the coffee, I said, lifting the small grocery bag in my hand. Thought I'd trade payment for dinner. She tilted her head. That's a dangerous offer. I might take you seriously. Good, I said before I could stop myself. The moment hung there, not awkward, but charged in a way that made it hard to breathe normally. Inside, the kitchen was dim, the late afternoon light catching the dust in the air again. I handed her the groceries, pasta, tomatoes, a bottle of wine I pretended was casual. She looked at the label, smiling. You really shouldn't. I wanted to, I said. She hesitated, then set it down. That's what worries me. The sound of water boiling filled the silence that followed. Small talk fell apart faster than the pasta would later. When she brushed past me to reach for a knife, her hand grazed my side, a touch light enough to deny, heavy enough to feel. Sorry, she murmured. I didn't answer. Couldn't. The knife clicked against the cutting board, steady, rhythmic. People talk, you know, she said after a while, her tone too even. About who visits who. About what it looks like. I leaned against the counter. Let them talk. Her hand paused mid-slice. You say that now. She looked up, meeting my eyes. For the first time, she looked uncertain. Not about me, about herself. The air between us grew tight again, that invisible string pulled just a little too far. And then, the sound, a sudden ping. Her phone lit up on the counter. A message. A name I didn't recognize. Her expression shifted, not panic, exactly. Just a quick return of walls she'd carefully taken down. She reached for the phone, thumb hovering over the screen, unreadable. Everything okay? I asked quietly. She nodded, too quickly. Just someone from work. But the way she turned the screen down said otherwise. I didn't press. I just stood there, close enough to feel the warmth coming off her. Close enough to know that if I moved an inch, everything would change. The smell of garlic filled the air. The pot hissed as water bubbled over. She reached to turn it down, but I was already beside her, my hand covering hers on the handle. Neither of us moved. Her breath caught, barely audible, her eyes flicking up to mine. For a moment, everything blurred, the kitchen, the noise, the world outside. There was only her hand under mine, trembling slightly, and the look that said everything words couldn't. Then the front door creaked open. Mom? A voice. Young. Female. She froze. I stepped back fast, my pulse hammering. The sound of footsteps. The front door shutting. Her daughter's voice again, closer this time. I didn't know you had company. Her mother's voice, calm, too calm. Just a neighbor helping with dinner. The daughter smiled politely when she saw me. I smiled back, too stiff, too fast. Nice to meet you, she said. You too, I managed. The moment passed, but the silence it left behind stayed long after she'd gone upstairs. When I turned back, she was staring at me, eyes full of something caught between fear and wanting. She whispered, almost to herself, "This can't keep happening." But her hand brushed mine again, slow, deliberate, as she said it. And in that second, I knew it already would. It was late when I found myself back at her door. No excuse this time, no groceries, no favor to repay. Just a pull that hadn't stopped since the night in her kitchen. She opened the door like she already knew it would be me. Her eyes were tired, softer somehow. "You shouldn't be here," she said. But she stepped aside anyway. The house was quiet, that kind of deep, waiting silence that makes you aware of every breath you take. "I couldn't sleep," I said, not sure why I was telling the truth. She gave a small laugh, without humor. Neither could I. There it was again, that invisible current between us. The kind that hums underneath words, that doesn't need to be named to be real. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, but her shoulders weren't defensive. They were tired. The kind of tired that comes after too many nights pretending nothing's wrong. "I keep thinking about that night," I said quietly. She didn't ask which one. Her gaze drifted to the window, to her reflection. "You're young," she said. "You'll move past this. Will you?" Her breath hitched, a sound so soft I almost missed it. I took a step closer. The floor creaked, but she didn't move. Another step, and I could see the tiny pulse at her throat, the way her hands gripped the edge of the counter like it was the only thing keeping her steady. "You don't understand," she said. "People see me differently now. I don't get to make mistakes." "It's not a mistake," I said. "Not unless we pretend it is." She looked at me then, really looked. All the restraint she'd been clinging to flickered in her eyes. "Don't," she whispered. But she didn't step back. I reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. My fingers grazed her skin, warm, trembling. She closed her eyes for a second too long. "Why do you do that?" she asked, voice breaking. "Do what? Look at me like that." I didn't have an answer, just the truth that hung between us. "Because I can't look away." Her breath came shallow now, uneven. She turned, half facing me, her hand finding my wrist without meaning to. The contact sent a shock straight through me, small, but enough to unravel everything we'd been trying to hold together. The room felt too small, too close. The rain had started again outside, faint but steady, as if the world knew what was about to happen and was trying to drown it out. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "I already do," I said, and I meant it in every way at once. Her hand moved from my wrist to my chest, resting there like she was testing how real I was. Her eyes searched mine, desperate for something neither of us could name. Then she leaned in, not fully, just enough that her breath brushed my cheek, that her lips hovered near mine. "Say it," she murmured. "What?" "Say you'll stop." But I couldn't. And just as the space between us vanished, the sound came. A phone vibrating on the counter. Her phone. Again. The same name lighting up the screen. She froze. Her hand fell away. The moment broke, sharp, unfixable. I stepped back, heart pounding, every nerve still lit. She turned her face from me, but her voice came out barely steady. This has to end before it starts. I almost believed her. Almost. I didn't mean to overhear. It was the kind of accident that happens when you go back for something you shouldn't. The scarf I'd left on her chair, the one she'd wrapped around her shoulders when I walked her home the week before. The door was open just enough for voices to slip through. Hers, low, careful. Another woman's, firm, familiar. People have noticed, the other voice said. You should be careful. I don't owe anyone explanations, she replied, but there was a tremor in her tone that betrayed her. You think they don't talk? You're old enough to know better. The words landed like a slap, even though they weren't meant for me. I stepped back into the shadows, my pulse hammering. Every instinct told me to leave, but I couldn't. Her friend's voice softened. You've been lonely, I get it. But this? He's a kid, Anna. Anna. I'd never said her name out loud, not once. I'd always stopped myself, afraid it might mean too much. Hearing it there, small, wounded, made something inside me twist. When the door finally closed and her friend's car pulled away, I knocked before I could change my mind. She opened it slowly, eyes widening when she saw me. You hurt, she said. Not a question. I nodded. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Then, quietly, she's not wrong, she said. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She knows me, she said, looking past me, not at me. She knows I find ways to break things that aren't even broken. She turned away, arms folded, her shoulders tight. I stepped inside anyway, closing the door behind me. Then maybe let me decide what breaks me, I said. Her hands clenched at her sides, then loosened. You shouldn't be here. I'm already here. She turned sharply, eyes glassy now, as if holding back something she'd kept buried for too long. Do you think I don't want this? The silence that followed was louder than anything she could have said. I took one step closer, and she didn't move. Her voice shook. I lie awake every night trying to forget how it feels when you look at me. I tell myself it's wrong, that it's ridiculous, that it will ruin us both. And it never works. Her confession hit like a physical thing, raw, trembling, unguarded. I reached out, brushing my fingers along her jaw, hesitant at first. She didn't pull away. Her breath caught, her body leaning, just slightly, toward mine. I'm not afraid of what they'll say, I whispered. You should be. Her words came out as a whisper against my skin. I could feel her shaking, not from fear alone, but from every emotion she tried to silence. Then her phone buzzed again on the counter, the same name flashing across the screen. She stared at it, then at me. He's coming by, she said softly. My husband's brother. He's been helping with the estate paperwork. The realization hit, the message, the secrecy, the weight behind her silences. So it wasn't just her past I'd been walking into. It was his. She stepped back, voice barely audible. If you stay, there's no turning this into something harmless anymore. I met her eyes. It stopped being harmless a long time ago. The night felt heavier than the others, not because of the weather, but because of everything left unsaid. The house was dim except for the amber glow from a single lamp. The rain hadn't stopped all day, drumming against the windows in uneven rhythms. She stood by the sink, staring at nothing, a half-finished glass of wine in her hand. I hadn't planned to come. I told myself I wouldn't. But when she didn't answer my call, I came anyway. When she turned and saw me standing there, her breath caught, not in surprise, but in recognition. You shouldn't keep coming here, she said softly. I know, I said, stepping closer. But I keep doing it anyway. She tried to smile, but it faltered halfway. You don't make this easy. Neither do you. For a moment, There was nothing, no words, just the quiet between us. Then she sighed, setting down the glass, her fingers trembling slightly. You think this is simple? She said. You think wanting something makes it right? No, I said. But pretending it isn't there doesn't make it disappear. She looked up, and I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the kind that comes from fighting something you've already lost to. Every time you look at me, she whispered, I feel like I'm being asked to start over. And I don't know if I have that in me anymore. I took a slow step forward. You don't have to start over. Just don't walk away yet. She closed her eyes, and I could see her shoulders rise, fall, one long, deliberate breath. When she opened them again, there was no distance left. She reached up, hesitant, fingers grazing my jaw, tracing the edge like she was memorizing it. My heart stuttered. This is wrong, she murmured. Then tell me to stop. Her hand didn't move. Instead, she leaned closer, her voice almost breaking. I don't want to. The air between us shifted, sharp, electric. My hand found hers, our fingers interlocking like the question had already been answered. Her body trembled against mine, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of finally giving in to something we'd both been running from. Her forehead rested against my chest, her breath shallow, sinking with mine. You'll hate me for this, she said. Not a chance. She tilted her head slightly, her lips brushing the edge of my throat. Not a kiss, not yet, just a whisper of one. I felt her pulse race beneath her skin, the world narrowing to that single, impossible inch between us. I can't keep pretending, I said. She looked up at me then, eyes glassy open, no more masks. Neither can I. The next moment wasn't loud or dramatic. It was still. Just her hand slipping to the back of my neck, my breath catching, and the smallest movement that changed everything. A touch that wasn't supposed to happen, but did. And when we finally pulled apart, the silence that followed wasn't shame. It was understanding. We both knew what it meant. What it cost. And that, for a moment, just one, we'd stopped running. Morning came slowly, as if the world itself wasn't ready to face what the night had changed. The rain had stopped some time before dawn, leaving everything damp and quiet. A thin light crept through the curtains, washing the room in a soft gray that blurred the edges of everything, the table, the window, us. She sat by the window in her robe, a mug between her hands. I stood a few feet away, unsure if I should speak first or wait for her to. When she finally looked over, there wasn't fear in her eyes anymore. Just calm, tired, honest calm. You're quiet, she said. I smiled faintly. So are you. She took a sip, then looked back out the window. I was thinking, she said, about how much time I've spent being afraid of what people might think. What they might say. I waited. And then I realized. She continued, her voice soft. It's all noise. It fades. What stays is the feeling you chose to ignore. I crossed the room slowly, each step measured, careful. So what are you choosing now? Her lips curved, just barely. For once? Not to run from what makes me feel alive. That was all I needed to hear. I sat beside her. She didn't move away, just shifted enough so our shoulders touched. Her warmth seeped into me, grounding, real. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It felt settled. Like everything chaotic between us had finally exhaled. You know this won't be easy, she said. I don't want easy, I replied. I want honest. That made her laugh, a small, genuine sound that cracked open something in both of us. She turned toward me, tucking her legs up on the chair. You have this way of saying things that make me forget I'm supposed to be wiser than you. Maybe wisdom's overrated, I said. Maybe, she whispered, and reached for my hand. It wasn't a dramatic gesture. No grand declarations. Just her fingers slipping into mine, slow and deliberate, her thumb brushing lightly across my knuckles. A touch that said I'm here now. Whatever comes, I'm not hiding from it anymore. We sat like that for a while, no rush, no pretending. Her head eventually rested against my shoulder, her breathing steady, her skin warm against mine. Outside, the sky cleared, pale and wide. I pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, the kind that says more than any words could. She sighed, a quiet sound that felt like peace. "You really shouldn't have stayed," she murmured, though her hand tightened around mine. "I know," I said. "But I wanted to." She smiled against my shoulder. "Then maybe that's enough." And for the first time, it was.